Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Dennis Rader, born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, lived a seemingly ordinary life, but behind this facade lay a chilling secret. Known as the BTK killer, short for bind, torture, kill, he terrorized Wichita, Kansas, for nearly 2 decades. As a child, Rader displayed disturbing behavior, including a fascination with bondage and cruelty to animals. Yet, he masked these tendencies well, later working as a compliance officer and serving as president of his local church. Married with children, he epitomized suburban normality, making his crimes even more shocking. Between 1974 and 1991, Rader killed 10 people, including men, women, and children. His methods were meticulous and sadistic, involving premeditated attacks, torture, and murder. Rader's motivation stemmed from his sadistic fantasies and an insatiable desire for power and control. Seeking recognition, he sent taunting letters to law enforcement, detailing his crimes and relishing the fear he instilled in the community. Rader's downfall came in 2005 when he resumed his correspondence with police after years of silence. A floppy disk he sent was traced to his church computer, leading to his arrest. He confessed to all his crimes and was sentenced to 10 life terms without parole. The BTK case remains one of the most chilling examples of a killer hiding in plain sight. Harold Shipman, Dr. Death. Dr. Harold Shipman, born on January 14, 1946, in Nottingham, England, is often considered one of history's most prolific serial killers. To his patients, Shipman was a caring and trustworthy doctor, but beneath the skies lurked a man capable of unimaginable evil. Shipman's mother's death from cancer when he was 17 left a profound impact on him. During her illness, he witnessed the palliative effects of morphine, a detail that would later feature in his murderous methods. Between 1975 and 1998, Shipman secretly killed approximately 250 patients, primarily elderly women, by administering lethal doses of heroin. Shipman exploited the immense trust his patients placed in him. He even falsified medical records and altered wills to cover his tracks and benefit financially. His motivations remain unclear, but experts suggest a mix of psychological trauma and a God complex, granting him control over life and death. The unraveling of Shipman's crimes began in 1998 when he forged the will of one of his victims, Kathleen Grundy. Her suspicious daughter launched an investigation, leading to the discovery of his monstrous deeds. In 2000, Shipman was convicted of 15 murders and sentenced to life in prison. However, he hanged himself in 2004, leaving countless questions unanswered. His case remains a chilling reminder of how power can be abused by those entrusted to protect life. Ted Bundy, the charming killer. Ted Bundy, born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, is one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Beneath his charm and good looks was a manipulative, violent predator. Bundy's early life was marred by a complex family dynamic. Raised to believe his grandparents were his parents and his mother was his sister, the eventual truth led to deep feelings of anger and confusion. Despite this, Bundy appeared to lead a successful life, attending college, law school, and working on political campaigns. However, between 1974 and 1978, Bundy carried out a horrific spree of murders, killing at least 30 young women across multiple states. He lured victims by faking injuries or posing as a figure of authority, using his charm to win their trust before abducting, assaulting, and killing them. His crimes were driven by a sadistic desire for control and power, often involving necrophilia and acts of extreme violence. Bundy's manipulative nature extended to his interactions with law enforcement, managing to escape custody twice before being recaptured in Florida in 1978. His trial became a media spectacle, with Bundy acting as his own attorney and exploiting his charm to gain public attention. Convicted of multiple murders, Bundy was executed in 1989, leaving behind a legacy of terror and manipulation that continues to fascinate and horrify. Pedro Alonso Lopez, the monster of the Andes. Pedro Alonso Lopez, born in 1948 in Colombia, is one of the most prolific and terrifying serial killers in recorded history. His childhood was a nightmare of abuse and trauma. Kicked out of his home at just 8 years old after being caught molesting his younger sister, Lopez was left to survive on the streets, where he endured sexual abuse and violence. As an adult, Lopez became a predator, targeting young girls between the ages of 9 and 12, from the 1970s to the 1980s. He claimed to have killed over 300 girls across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. He would lure his victims from crowded markets or streets, assault them, and then strangle them. His actions were driven by a deep-seated hatred for women, rooted in his traumatic childhood and warped sense of morality. Lopez was captured in 1980 in Ecuador while attempting to abduct a girl. He confessed to his crimes and led authorities to the graves of 53 victims. Convicted of 110 murders, he served only 14 years in prison due to Ecuador's maximum sentence laws. Upon release, he was briefly detained in Colombia before being declared sane and released in 1998. His current whereabouts remain unknown, and the true extent of his crimes may never be fully uncovered. Lopez's case remains a chilling reminder of the failures of the justice system and the devastating impact of unchecked trauma. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. David Berkowitz, also known as the son of Sam, was one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Born on June 1, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York, Berkowitz was adopted by a middle-class Jewish family. Despite their care, his childhood was marked by feelings of abandonment and anger, especially after discovering he was adopted and later experiencing the death of his adoptive mother. These events led to a withdrawn, socially isolated teenager who exhibited troubling behaviors such as pyromania and animal cruelty. Between 1976 and 1977, Berkowitz launched a killing spree that terrorized New York City. Using a .44 caliber revolver, he targeted young couples sitting in parked cars, killing 6 people and wounding 7 others. His seemingly random and senseless attacks created widespread panic. Adding to the fear, Berkowitz taunted police and the media with cryptic letters signed as Son of Sam, claiming he was driven by a demonic force speaking through his neighbor's dog. Berkowitz's actions and bizarre claims captured national attention, sparking a media frenzy and plunging New York into a state of paranoia. Despite a massive manhunt, Berkowitz eluded authorities until a parking ticket near one of the crime scenes led to his arrest in August 1977. He quickly confessed, stating that a demon named Sam had commanded him to kill. Convicted of multiple murders, Berkowitz received 6 consecutive life sentences. While in prison, he claimed to have found religion and renounced his earlier beliefs, referring to himself as the Son of Hope. Despite his supposed transformation, Berkowitz remains behind bars, serving out his life sentences without the possibility of parole. Convicted of multiple murders, Berkowitz received 6 consecutive life sentences. While in prison, he claimed to have found religion and renounced his earlier beliefs, referring to himself as the Son of Hope. Despite his supposed transformation, Berkowitz remains behind bars, serving out his life sentences without the possibility of parole. From 1978 to 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 young men, many of whom were African American. He lured his victims back to his apartment under false pretenses, where he would drug, kill, and dismember them. Dahmer's crimes were marked by acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. He preserved parts of his victims as trophies and even attempted to create zombies by drilling holes in their skulls and injecting chemicals to exert control over them. Dahmer's motivation stemmed from a deep psychological disturbance. He sought dominance and control over his victims, driven by a desire to never feel lonely. His detachment from morality allowed him to commit increasingly horrific acts, all while maintaining a facade of normalcy through low-level jobs. In July 1991, Dahmer was finally caught when one of his intended victims escaped and flagged down police. Investigators uncovered dismembered body parts and incriminating photographs in his apartment, leading to his arrest. Dahmer confessed in chilling detail to his crimes, shocking the nation. Convicted of 15 murders, he was sentenced to life in prison. However, in 1994, Dahmer was killed by a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez, widely known as the Night Stalker, spread terror throughout Southern California during the mid-1980s. Born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas, Ramirez endured a troubled upbringing. Exposed to violence at a young age, he was heavily influenced by his cousin, a Vietnam War veteran who shared graphic stories of wartime atrocities. Ramirez also suffered physical abuse at home and developed an early interest in Satanism and dark rituals. Between 1984 and 1985, Ramirez committed a spree of heinous crimes, including murder, sexual assault, and burglary, leaving at least 14 people dead and many others injured. His attacks were marked by extreme violence and unpredictability, with victims ranging from children to the elderly. Ramirez would break into homes at night, often sexually assaulting his victims before killing them. He incorporated satanic symbols into his crimes, amplifying the fear he instilled in his victims and the public. Ramirez's sadistic motivation stemmed from his fascination with chaos and evil. His crimes reflected a complete lack of empathy or remorse, and he relished the terror he caused. A citywide manhunt for the Night Stalker was triggered by fingerprint evidence and a surviving victim's description. In August 1985, Ramirez was captured by a group of civilians in East Los Angeles after being recognized in public. Convicted in 1989 of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries, Ramirez was sentenced to death. He remained on death row until 2013, when he died from complications related to cancer. The past is full of secrets, and there's so much more to explore. Subscribe now to Spectral History and join me in unraveling the mysteries of history.